Far beyond the spiral arms of the Milky Way, the Zerath Alliance, a powerful collection of alien civilizations, watched over hundreds of star systems. They were intelligent, advanced, and curious, always exploring, always learning. For thousands of years they had charted new planets and cataloged new species. Yet there was one small blue planet that had puzzled them for centuries: Earth. The Zerath considered Earth a death world. Its atmosphere was unstable, its surface was violent, and its species were unpredictable. Earth's climate could change in minutes. Storms that could tear metal apart, heat that could melt rock, cold that could freeze the strongest alloys. No other intelligent race had ever evolved in such chaos. For the Zerath, it was impossible. Life on such a world should not exist. Yet humans did. The data came from distant probes, small metallic eyes that had observed the planet from far away. They showed strange, fearless creatures who walked upright, built cities, and even launched metal ships into space, all while living among volcanoes, earthquakes, and endless wars. At first, the Zerath believed the recordings were fake. "How can they breathe that air?" asked Commander Thalen, a tall, silver-skinned alien with eyes like molten mercury. "It's filled with toxins. Half of their oxygen level would kill us." "Not only do they breathe it," replied scientist Ivara, one of the leading researchers on alien biology. "They thrive in it. They run, fight, and even sing in that poison sky." The council chamber was silent. The blue hologram of Earth spun slowly before them, a fragile sphere surrounded by digital data, numbers flashing across its oceans. Then came the most shocking transmission. It was not from the probes. It was a human voice. "This is Earth calling. To anyone out there, we come in peace." The voice was old and cracked, but filled with hope. It was recorded long ago, yet it had just reached the Zerath system after traveling through space for centuries. The aliens listened in disbelief. The message continued: "We are humans. Our world is harsh but beautiful. We may not live long, but we love deeply. We fall and we rise again. If anyone hears this, know that we are not your enemy." When the message ended, no one spoke for a long time. Even Thalen, known for his cold logic, felt something shift inside him. "They know they live on a deadly world," he murmured. "And still they speak of peace?" Ivara nodded slowly. "It is strange, but also inspiring." In the following weeks, the Zerath Council debated whether to send a team to Earth. Most believed it was too dangerous. The air, gravity, and microbes could kill them instantly. Others, like Ivara, wanted to go. "If the humans are real," she argued, "then they may hold the key to survival in extreme environments. We could learn more from them than from any other species." Thalen disagreed. "You would risk your life for a rumor?" "It's not a rumor," she replied firmly. "It's a calling." Finally, the council made its decision. A single exploratory ship, the Valian, would travel to Earth. It would carry a small crew of scientists and soldiers, including Thalen as commander and Ivara as lead biologist. The mission goal: observe humanity up close. Confirm if they truly exist. The journey. The Valian cut through the darkness of space like a silver arrow. Months passed in the deep silence of the void. The crew slept, studied, and wondered what awaited them. When they finally reached the edge of the solar system, the sight of the glowing sun filled the observation deck with golden light. "It's beautiful," whispered Ivara. "Their star is young and full of fire." But as they drew closer to Earth, beauty turned to shock. The scanners lit up with alarming data. Storms swirling the size of continents, oceans boiling with heat in some areas and freezing in others, lightning storms that could power entire cities. "Impossible," said Thalen, gripping the edge of the console. "No species could survive this chaos." Yet the sensors also detected movement: ships, satellites, cities glowing on the dark side of the planet. "There," said Ivara softly, her eyes wide with wonder. "They are still alive." The first sight, the Valian entered orbit above Earth. Through the observation dome, the aliens saw green forests, blue oceans, and gray cities crawling with activity. It was breathtaking and terrifying. The air below was thick with pollution and energy signals. Weapons flashed across small regions where humans fought each other. Yet in other parts, music floated from parks. Laughter echoed from streets and lights danced like stars on the surface. "They fight," said Thalen, "and yet they celebrate." They destroy, said another crew member. And yet they build again. Ivara pressed her hand to the glass. They are contradictions, and still they live. The crew watched as a massive storm approached a coastal city. Lightning flashed across the clouds, waves crashed against towers, and winds howled. Yet to their amazement, humans didn't flee. They stayed, helping each other, holding on to loved ones, protecting strangers. Why don't they hide? Asked a young officer. Ivara smiled faintly. Because that's what humans do. They face storms. An unexpected encounter. On the third day in orbit, something unexpected happened. A human satellite detected the Valian. Within hours, multiple radio signals were directed toward the ship. They found us, Thalen said, his voice sharp. Should we cloak? Asked the pilot. No, Ivara interrupted. Let's listen first. They tuned into one of the frequencies. The sound was noisy, distorted, but recognizable. Unidentified object, this is the United Earth Federation. You are in our orbit. Identify yourself. Thalen looked at Ivara. What now? She took a deep breath. We answer. The entire crew turned toward her, shocked. Are you serious? Thalen asked. Yes, she said calmly. They reached for the stars long before we found them. It's only fair we reach back. Thalen hesitated. Then he nodded. Open a channel. The voice across the stars. For the first time in galactic history, the Zerath spoke to humans. And for the first time, humans heard voices not of their own kind. The communication was rough at first. Words were mistranslated, signals broke, but slowly, meaning found its way through. Ivara introduced herself as a researcher from a distant world. The human commander on the other side, Captain Elias Ward, responded with awe and caution. You're not from Earth? He asked. No, Ivara replied gently, but we've come to understand it, and to understand you. There was silence, then a soft laugh from the human. Then you probably got a lot of questions. Ivara smiled. Yes, one especially. How do you survive such a dangerous planet? Ward chuckled again, this time with warmth. We just learned to love it. Every storm, every scar, every challenge. It's home. The answer struck every Zerath on the ship. It was so simple, and yet so powerful. They had spent millennia avoiding danger, controlling their worlds to perfection. But here were humans thriving in chaos, finding beauty in pain, strength in weakness. The realization that night, as the Valian drifted in orbit, Ivara sat alone watching the glowing curve of Earth. Clouds drifted across the oceans like white ghosts, and lightning shimmered in the distance. She thought of all the sterile, safe worlds the Zerath had built, calm, predictable, perfect. But none of them had ever made her heart race like this one. Maybe perfection wasn't life. Maybe struggle was, she whispered softly. They survive not because their world is kind, but because they are. Behind her, Thalen approached quietly. For the first time, there was no skepticism in his voice, only respect. You were right, he said. They shouldn't exist, but they do. And perhaps that's why they are so strong. Ivara nodded, and maybe that's why we were meant to find them. As the ship orbited the blue planet below, the crew felt something change, not in space, but in themselves. They had come to study humans, but now they realized they might have something to learn from them. For days, the Zerath crew of the Valian remained in orbit, observing humanity's world from above. Each sunrise across Earth's curve painted the planet in gold, and each sunset left it burning red. It was beautiful, alive, unpredictable, and untamed. But beauty was never what the Zerath feared. They feared the unknown. Commander Thalen stood at the observation deck, his arms crossed, eyes fixed on the spinning planet below. They invited us, he said quietly, but how can we step on a world that kills its own? Beside him, scientist Ivara smiled faintly. Because that is the only way to understand them, to see what they see, to feel what they feel. Her voice carried conviction, the kind that made others follow. Thalen turned away from the window, still doubtful but unable to argue. Prepare the descent shuttle, he said finally. We'll land where they want us. The descent, the humans had chosen a landing site far from any major city, an open desert known as the Atacama Basin. It was quiet, empty, and safe. Or so they said. As the shuttle detached from the Valian, a deep rumble filled its cabin. The hull glowed red as it sliced through Earth's atmosphere. Flames licked the windows and the ship shook violently. The Zerath had traveled through the hearts of dying stars, but none had felt as wild as this. Atmospheric density rising, shouted the pilot. Gravity pull at 1.02 standard units, heavier than expected. Hold course, Thalen commanded, gripping his seat. Outside clouds boiled like oceans. Wind roared against the ship. Then suddenly, with a burst of white light, they broke through the storm and emerged into a vast blue sky. Below stretched miles of red desert, dotted with jagged rocks and golden dust. By the stars, whispered Ivara, gazing out the window. It's alive. Moments later, the shuttle touched down gently on Earth for the first time in galactic history. First contact dust swirled as the ramp lowered. The air shimmered with heat. Every Zerath wore a sealed environmental suit, transparent helmets that glowed faintly with blue light. They stepped onto the red sand cautiously, scanning every sound. The air smelled of salt and dryness. In the distance, human vehicles approached, large machines on wheels carrying soldiers and scientists. The leading vehicle stopped 20 meters away. A door opened. A human man stepped out wearing a white protective suit marked with a blue flag. He had dark hair streaked with gray and calm, watchful eyes. Welcome to Earth, he said through a translator device. His voice was firm but kind. I'm Captain Elias Ward. Thalen stepped forward. His tone was diplomatic, though his body was tense. We are Commander Thalen of the Zerath Alliance. We come in peace, Ward smiled slightly. Then you're already our guests. Both sides stood silently for a moment, separated by a few steps and 1,000 years of difference. Then slowly, Ward extended his hand. Ivara noticed the gesture first. What is that? She whispered. A greeting, said Thalen after scanning the human's body language. A sign of respect. Cautiously, Thalen reached out his 3-fingered hand and shook Ward's. For the first time, alien and human skin met beneath the same sun, the human base. The humans led the Zerath team to a temporary research station built near the landing zone. It was made of metal domes and solar panels, humming with energy. Inside, the temperature was cooler and the air smelled faintly of oil and ozone. Human scientists moved around nervously, stealing glances at the newcomers. They seem smaller than I expected, murmured one of Thalen's officers. But their eyes, replied Ivara softly. They're full of fire. Captain Ward guided them to a central table where holographic maps of Earth glowed. This is your planet? Thalen asked, scanning the swirling storm patterns. It's constantly fighting itself, Ward chuckled. Yes, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, you name it. It tries to kill us every few weeks. Thalen frowned. And yet you stay? Of course, Ward said, smiling. Where else would we go? It's home. That word, home, struck something deep inside the aliens. Their own worlds were controlled, sterile, perfect. But none of them ever used that word with such emotion. Ivara's discovery later that day. Ivara was given permission to explore the area outside the base with a human guide, a young scientist named Dr. Lila Hart. The sun blazed overhead, but Lila walked confidently through the heat, pointing at the rocks and dry plants. These small shrubs, Lila said, crouching to show her, they can live years without rain. When water finally comes, they bloom in just hours. Ivara bent down, fascinated. How can they endure so long? Lila smiled. Because they have to. It's their only choice. Those words echoed in Ivara's mind. Their only choice. As the two walked farther, they reached a cliff overlooking the desert plains. The wind blew strong, carrying grains of red sand across the horizon. Do you ever get tired of fighting this planet? Ivara asked. Lila laughed softly. Sometimes. But then we remember, Earth isn't fighting us. It's shaping us. Every storm teaches us something new. Ivara stared out at the endless land, her heart tightening. These humans didn't just survive. They adapted. They grew stronger. Perhaps that was the secret. Their resilience was not defiance, but harmony with struggle itself. The storm that evening, dark clouds gathered suddenly in the distance. The humans called it a sandstorm, but to the Zerath it looked like the end of the world. Winds howled, turning the sky orange. The base alarm sounded and humans rushed to secure equipment. Storm approaching from the west. All personnel inside, shouted a voice over the intercom. Thalen watched in disbelief as the humans moved quickly but without panic. They worked together like a single living machine. One team covering solar panels, another helping a fallen worker. Why aren't they running? He asked. Ward, tightening a strap on his suit, looked at him calmly. Because we don't run from storms. We face them. Thalen hesitated, then followed his lead. Within minutes, the storm hit. The desert became a wall of wind and dust. Visibility dropped to nothing. The air screamed. Metal panels bent under pressure. Inside the base, sand blasted against the walls like hail. Alarms blared. Power flickered. Main generator failing, a human technician shouted. Without thinking, Ivara stood. I can fix it. Thalen grabbed her arm. You can't. The wind will tear you apart. But she looked him in the eye. If they can survive this, so can I. Before he could stop her, she ran into the storm, following Lila and Ward toward the power module. Courage in the chaos outside. The world was nothing but noise and dust. The wind pulled at their suits, sand stung their faces, and static electricity danced in the air. Ward led the way, shielding his eyes. This way! Stay low! The generator was half buried in sand. Sparks flew as wires whipped in the wind. I can stabilize the circuit, Ivara shouted over the roar. Her blue fingers glowed as she reconnected cables, using her own suit's energy to channel power. Are you insane? Ward yelled. Just determined, she answered. Minutes later, the generator roared back to life. Lights flickered across the base. Cheers erupted through the comms. Ward turned to Ivara, his helmet scratched, eyes bright. You saved us, Ivara shook her head. No, we saved us. When they returned inside, drenched in dust and exhaustion, Thalen stood waiting. For a moment he looked furious, then his expression softened. You could have died, he said quietly. Ivara smiled. So could they. But they didn't stop trying. Thalen didn't reply. Instead, he turned toward the storm still raging outside and whispered, Maybe they're stronger than we ever believed. After the storm by dawn, the sky had cleared. The desert shimmered under the rising sun, calm and golden once more. The base stood firm, though battered. Humans and aliens worked side by side to repair damaged systems. For the first time, they laughed together. Real laughter, not forced diplomacy. Captain Ward brought water to the Zerath team. Welcome to Earth, he said again, grinning. You survived your first storm. Thalen accepted the cup of water, staring at it curiously. You call this survival? Ward nodded. Yes, but it's more than that, it's living. Thalen took a slow sip. The water tasted like minerals and sunlight. For the first time, he understood why humans loved this wild world. Understanding humanity. Later, as the crew prepared to send reports back to the Velian, Thalen gathered his officers. He looked at each of them and said, We came to study these beings, expecting to find chaos and weakness. But instead we found something rare, something even our civilization forgot. Resilience, said one officer. Hope, added another. Thalen nodded. Yes, they don't just live on a death world. They thrive because of it. He looked out the window one last time, watching the humans working below, their shadows long in the morning light. They have something we never learned to master, he said quietly. The courage to love a world that tries to break them. That night when the stars rose above the desert, Ivara stood outside alone. The air was cool now, filled with the soft hum of the wind. She looked up at the night sky, at the Velian orbiting above, and smiled. Humans had shown her something no science ever could, the strength that comes from heart, not from technology. A sound broke the silence, footsteps in the sand. It was Ward. Couldn't sleep? He asked. She shook her head. Just thinking. Your world is dangerous, but also wonderful, he chuckled. That's Earth for you. Ivara looked at him, her voice soft. Your people are a miracle, Captain. Ward smiled gently. Maybe. Or maybe we just refuse to give up. They stood together in silence, watching the stars above and the fragile, fierce planet below. In that quiet moment, Ivara realized something. The storm had passed, but its memory stayed in everyone's mind. The Zerath crew and the humans had survived it together, side by side. Now, as the sun rose over the calm desert, something had changed between them. No longer strangers. No longer fearful. Now they were partners. Commander Thalen looked out across the golden sand. The air shimmered with heat and dust sparkled in the sunlight. This world, he murmured, never rests. Every hour it fights for control of itself. Beside him, scientist Ivara nodded, and still the humans call it home. Her voice was full of admiration and quiet awe. Thailand turned toward the human base, where Captain Elias Ward and his team were repairing solar panels. Despite exhaustion, they laughed and joked, their faces dirty with sand but their eyes bright. How can they find joy in such chaos? Thailand asked softly. Maybe joy is what keeps them alive, Ivara replied. Thailand didn't answer, but something deep inside him began to shift. The alliance begins. That afternoon, both teams gathered inside the main dome for an official meeting. Holograms of stars floated in the air, glowing gently in blue light. Ward spoke first. We want to thank you for trusting us. Humanity has waited centuries for proof that we're not alone. Thalen folded his hands behind his back. And we thank you for your hospitality. You could have attacked us when you saw our ship. Ward smiled faintly. We had that thought. But then we listened to your message and heard hope instead of threat. The room grew quiet. For a moment, two intelligent species stood across from each other, united not by power, but by curiosity. Ivara stepped forward. We would like to study how your people adapt to such extreme conditions. In return, we can share knowledge about medicine and energy systems. Lila Hart, the young human scientist, looked up. You mean, we work together? Yes, Ivara said, her smile gentle. Together, Ward nodded. Then let's begin something new. Learning from Earth, the days that followed were unlike anything either species had experienced. Zerath scientists moved among human engineers, exchanging ideas and tools. Humans, in turn, showed the aliens how they lived with the planet's wild moods, how they built homes that bent with storms, crops that grew in poor soil, and hearts that refused to surrender. One afternoon, Ivara joined Lila in the greenhouse dome. Rows of plants grew under artificial light, their leaves trembling in recycled air. These plants, Lila explained, can grow in almost any climate now. We used genes from desert flowers and ocean kelp. It took us generations to make them this strong. Ivara touched one leaf gently. You didn't create these plants for comfort, she said. You made them to survive, Lila smiled. Exactly. We don't look for perfection. We look for possibility. That sentence stayed in Ivara's heart for the rest of the day. Possibility. The sky turned strange. A week later, while the joint teams were working, alarms suddenly blared across the base. Red lights flashed. The sky outside dimmed unexpectedly. What's happening? Thalen demanded. Ward rushed to a console. Some kind of electromagnetic surge coming from orbit. Ivara's blood ran cold. From the Valian? The communication officer replied. No, Commander. It's something else. Another ship. The room fell silent. Outside, through the observation dome, a shadow appeared in the upper atmosphere, a dark, angular shape moving fast. Thalen's eyes widened. That's not one of ours, Ward frowned. Then who is it? Moments later, the new ship broadcast a signal. The message, though distorted, was clear enough to chill everyone. This world is classified as uninhabitable. Any foreign interference violates the preservation. Code, leave immediately. It was the Dravik Dominion, a rival alien, faction known for claiming planets and erasing anything they saw as impure life. Danger from the sky, Thalen slammed his hand on the table. We need to get back to orbit now. Ward shook his head. If you leave, they'll see it as weakness. They'll attack Earth next. Thalen looked at him torn. You don't understand. The Dravik consider worlds like this unworthy. They'll burn it to ash just to keep it clean. Then we stop them, Ward said firmly. Together. For a moment, Thalen saw in the human's eyes something he hadn't seen in centuries. Fear mixed with defiance. Ivara spoke softly. Captain Ward is right. If we run, this planet dies. If we stand, maybe both our species live. Thalen hesitated, then nodded. Prepare defenses. Preparing for battle, humans in Zerath worked through the night. They combined alien shielding with human missile launchers, creating strange hybrid weapons. Engineers rewired communication satellites to act as early warning systems. Lila and Ivara coordinated from the command center. Their hands moved quickly over glowing screens. Energy output stable, Ivara said. But the shields won't last long without power. Lila adjusted a dial. Then we'll give them more power. We always find a way. Meanwhile, Ward and Thalen stood outside the base watching the dark ship in the upper sky. They're scanning the planet, Thalen said quietly. Ward folded his arms. Then let's make sure they find something worth fearing. The first attack when the Dravik struck, it was like thunder tearing through space. A beam of blue energy cut across the sky, hitting the desert ground a few kilometers away. The shockwave rattled the base, throwing sand high into the air. "Shields holding," shouted a human technician. "Return fire!" Thalen commanded. The combined defense cannons fired upward, their energy bolts streaking like meteors. The alien ship dodged easily, circling like a predator. Inside the control dome, Ivara's voice trembled. "They're too fast." Lila clenched her fists. "Then we make them slow." She typed rapidly, sending a coded signal through the planetary network. Dozens of human satellites shifted their orbit, aligning over the desert. Within minutes, the sky glowed with a web of reflected sunlight. "What are you doing?" Shivara asked. "Using light," Lila said, smiling. "Something simple they won't expect." The reflected beams blinded the Dravik sensors for a few moments, long enough for Thalen's team to hit their engines with a direct shot. The Dravik ship wobbled. "Losing altitude. They're retreating to the upper atmosphere," shouted Ward. But Ivara's eyes darkened. "No, they're calling reinforcements." The Earth fights back hours later. 3 more Dravik ships appeared, black and sharp like blades. The humans and Zareth braced for the worst. Thalen turned to Ward. "Even with both our forces, we can't win a direct fight." Ward smiled grimly. "Then we don't fight directly." He pointed toward the sky. "The storm clouds. They're forming again. We can use them." Thalen frowned. "You want to hide in the storm?" "No," Ward said, eyes glinting. "We'll become the storm." With Thalen's help, they rerouted power from the Valion to the planet's atmosphere control probes, machines humans had used to study weather. Together, they amplified the natural storm patterns, turning them into a massive shield of lightning and wind. As the Dravik descended, the storm unleashed its fury. Bolts of energy lashed across the sky, striking the invaders' hulls. Their sensors flickered, and 2 ships were forced to retreat. The last one fired blindly, hitting only sand and air. Ward laughed over the comms. "Welcome to Earth, you monsters!" The Dravik flagship pulled away, damaged and humiliated. The humans and Zerath had done it. They had defended Earth. The aftermath. When silence finally returned, the survivors gathered outside the base. The desert smelled of ozone and rain. Lightning still flashed faintly in the distance. Ward removed his helmet, breathing in the heavy air. "We did it." Thalen looked around at the battered base, the burnt sand, and the exhausted faces of his crew. "We did," he said quietly. "But not because of strength alone." Ivara stepped forward. "Because we trusted each other," Lila smiled. "And because we believed in what this world stands for." Thalen gazed at the horizon, where dawn was beginning to rise once again. "A world that never gives up," he said. Ward nodded. "Now you understand what it means to be human." The message home later aboard the Valion, Thalen sent a transmission to the Zerath High Council. His report was not what they expected. The humans are not a danger. They are a reminder. Their world is fierce, but their hearts are fiercer. We have learned more about life from a single storm on Earth than from 100 perfect worlds. They are not to be feared. They are to be respected. He ended the message with a rare smile. Perhaps we have found not just another species, but another kind of strength. A quiet night back on the surface, the human base glowed softly under the stars. Ivara and Lila sat on the edge of a dune looking up at the endless sky. "Will the Dravik return?" Lila asked quietly. "Maybe," Ivara said. "But now they'll think twice. They'll remember what happens when you threaten this planet." Lila chuckled. "You sound like one of us now." Ivara looked thoughtful. "Maybe I am. I think part of me belongs to this world now." They watched as a shooting star crossed the sky, a fragment of the storm's fury drifting away into space. The lesson as night deepened. Thalen stood outside the base, his armor covered in sand and scratches. He looked at the stars, then at Earth's glowing curve in the distance. He finally understood why humans could live here, on a world so deadly, yet so full of life. They didn't just endure pain. They transformed it. They didn't just face danger. They learned from it. And maybe, just maybe, the Zerath had more to learn from them than they ever imagined. He turned toward the sleeping base and whispered, You survive storms, because you are storms. She would carry for the rest of her life. Humans didn't survive despite their world. They survived because of it. The alien ship Vorthon's Grace hovered silently over the blue planet Earth. For years, the Galactic Council had dismissed it as a cursed world, too violent, too unstable, and too unpredictable for life to flourish. Yet now a small group of aliens stood at its orbit, staring at the living proof that their beliefs had been wrong all along. Captain Zalera, the leader of the alien expedition, had seen many worlds, some with endless oceans of gas, others filled with golden deserts or glowing forests, but nothing looked like Earth. Its atmosphere shimmered with storms, its continents carried scars of battles and changes. From above, it looked like a planet that had endured pain, yet still found ways to heal. Beside her, scientist Ron adjusted his device. Energy readings are confusing. The environment should not support advanced life forms. The radiation levels alone should have wiped them out. Solara finished softly. Her voice carried both wonder and disbelief. And yet, here they are. Humans. When the landing pod descended through Earth's atmosphere, lightning crackled across the sky. The ship shook violently, as if the planet itself was testing their courage. Solara gripped the control lever, feeling the heat rise against the metal walls. The storm roared, and for a moment the crew thought they might crash. But through the chaos, they saw something that made them forget the fear. Tiny lights glowing in the dark. Cities. They touched down on a quiet mountain valley, just outside the ruins of what was once a great city. Buildings stood broken, vines crawling up their sides. Nature had taken back much of what humans had built, yet still smoke rose from small houses and faint lights blinked across the land. Humans were alive. The aliens stepped out, their boots crunching on the dry earth. The air was cold, sharp and heavy with scents of dust and life. Ron scanned the ground. This planet, it's recovering. Slowly, but it is. That should be impossible after the destruction levels recorded. Maybe, Solara replied, her silver eyes watching the horizon. Impossible doesn't mean the same thing to humans. They didn't have to wait long to meet one. A young human approached from the trees, wearing a patched jacket and carrying a small tool that looked like a weapon. His hair was messy, his face tired but alert. He didn't seem afraid, only curious. Who are you? He called out in English. His voice carried both strength and suspicion. Solara stepped forward and raised her hand in peace. We mean no harm. We come from the stars. The young man's eyes widened. Aliens? He almost laughed but caught himself. You picked the wrong planet to visit. It's not safe here. Yet you live, Roan said quietly. The man hesitated. Yeah, we live. That's what we do. Over the next few hours, the aliens learned more than they ever expected. The man's name was Elias, and he lived in a small settlement nearby. He led them through old roads and cracked highways to a hidden valley where hundreds of people worked together. They built shelters from old metal, grew food in greenhouses, and gathered rainwater to survive. Children played near a stream. Women cooked food over open fires. There was laughter, exhaustion, and courage in every corner. Solara watched them in silence. Her people had always believed survival required perfect worlds, clean air, controlled climates, steady sunlight. But here humanity had survived storms, disease, and war, and they had done it with broken hands and hopeful hearts. This is incredible, whispered Roan. They've rebuilt without technology. No machines, no assistance, just willpower. Elias smiled faintly. We had help once before the world fell apart. But when everything ended, we learned to help ourselves. Solara turned to him. How do you continue when everything seems lost? Elias looked toward the mountains where the sun was setting. Because stopping would mean we gave up on tomorrow. And that's one thing humans don't do, we don't give up. That night the aliens stayed in the camp. They observed how people shared food, how they told stories beside the fire. A little girl brought Solara a piece of bread, smiling shyly. The captain took it carefully, almost afraid to break the fragile kindness being offered. This planet is harsh, Roan said as he analyzed the firelight, the storms, the hunger, the dangers. Yet they smile. Solara nodded. They've turned pain into strength. Perhaps that's why they endure. Later, when everyone slept, Solara walked outside. She looked up at the night sky. Stars glowed brighter here than anywhere she had been. The Earth's air was thin, yet it felt alive. Her communicator buzzed softly. It was a message from her command ship. Observation complete. Retrieve samples and return. Human resilience noted but irrelevant to Council interests. She stared at the words for a long moment. Her heart felt heavy. Irrelevant? How could they not see it? This planet held something far greater than technology. It held the unbreakable spirit of life itself. She closed the communicator. "They're wrong," she whispered. "This means everything." The next morning, a loud explosion shook the valley. The aliens ran outside, alarms flashing on their suits. A nearby ridge was collapsing, sending rocks tumbling down toward the camp. People screamed. Children ran. The ground trembled as debris fell. Without hesitation, Zalara and her crew joined the humans. They used their alien strength and equipment to lift fallen beams, to shield others from harm. Ron used his medical tools to heal the wounded, and through the chaos, Elias fought beside them, refusing to back down. "Move the children first," he shouted, his hands bleeding from pulling rocks. When the dust finally settled, the camp was damaged, but the people were alive. Zalara stood among them, covered in dirt, her silver armor cracked. Elias looked at her, breathing hard. "You didn't have to help. Why risk your life for us?" She met his eyes. "Because now I understand. You don't survive this planet by standing apart. You survive by standing together." Elias smiled weakly. "Then you're learning fast." Days passed. The aliens repaired what they could, helping rebuild the shelters. The humans offered them food, and in return the aliens taught them small ways to improve survival. Purifying water, storing energy from sunlight. A quiet friendship grew between the two species. The children began to follow Ron around, fascinated by his glowing tools. Zalara found herself laughing for the first time in years, but the peace did not last. One evening, as they sat by the fire, the communicator crackled again. "Captain Zalara, you have delayed your return. The Council demands explanation." Zalara replied calmly, "I'm observing a unique case of survival. Unnecessary. Leave immediately. This planet has no strategic value." Her fists tightened. She looked around at the people who had accepted her, at the world that had endured impossible odds. "No strategic value," she whispered. "They don't see the truth." That night, Zalara gathered her team. "The Council wants us to leave," she said softly. "They believe humanity's existence is meaningless. But I think we've seen something no other species has. Hope that defies logic." Ron looked uncertain. "If we disobey, we risk exile." "I know," she said. "But if we leave now, we abandon the very thing that makes us alive, the will to protect what's good." For a long time, no one spoke. Then one of the younger aliens stepped forward. "Captain, wherever you go, I follow." Slowly, the rest agreed. Zalara smiled. "Then we stay, at least until the Council understands what this planet truly means." The next day, Elias noticed something different in Zalara's tone. She spoke not as an observer, but as one of them. "You're not leaving, are you?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, not yet. There's still something to learn here. Something the universe forgot." Elias nodded. "Then welcome to Earth." And for the first time, Zalara felt she truly belonged, not as an alien, but as part of something greater, something deeply human. That night under the stars, the alien captain looked at the sky again. This time she didn't see a dangerous planet. She saw a miracle, one built not from perfection but from pain and perseverance. "Humans," she whispered almost to herself. "You shouldn't have survived this place. But you did, and now I understand why." The wind blew softly through the valley, carrying laughter and warmth through the cold night. For the first time in her life, Zalara didn't feel like an outsider looking in. She felt like a student of the universe, learning the greatest lesson ever written, that the power of survival was not in strength or intelligence, but in the heart that refused to give up. The morning came with a golden light spreading across the valley. The storm clouds had drifted away, leaving the sky clear and bright. The ruins that once looked broken now shone with life again, smoke rising from new fires, people repairing homes, laughter echoing through the open air. Captain Zalara stood on the ridge overlooking the camp. Her metallic armor was scratched and dull, but her heart felt lighter than ever. She had seen what no one in her galaxy had believed possible, humans living, laughing, and rebuilding on a planet that should have destroyed them. For her, this was not just a discovery. It was a revelation, but peace never lasted long on this world. That morning, as Zalara observed the valley, Roan rushed to her side, his expression tense. "Captain," he said, "we've received a new transmission." "It's urgent," she turned to him slowly. "From the council?" He nodded. "They know we disobeyed orders. They're sending a recall ship to retrieve us. Or remove us." Zalara's calm eyes narrowed. "How long?" 2 days. The humans noticed the change in the aliens' faces. They weren't laughing anymore. Even the children sensed the tension. Elias approached Zalara as she stood by the edge of the camp, staring at the mountains. "Something's wrong, isn't it?" he asked quietly. Zalara looked at him, her voice steady but soft. "My people are coming. They want to take us away from here. They don't see what you've built. They think this world is just dangerous dust." Elias's brows furrowed. "And you? Do you want to go?" She hesitated. The answer should have been easy. She was an alien commander bound by duty and rules. But after everything she had seen, and the courage, the laughter, the humanity, duty felt small. "No," she whispered finally. "I want to stay." Elias smiled faintly. "Then stay. You don't need their permission." Zalara's gaze fell to the dirt, the small footprints, the fields of growing green. "If I stay, they might destroy this place to bring me back. I can't let that happen." Elias said nothing for a while. He understood too well. The cost of survival, the price of freedom. As night fell, the valley was filled with a strange mix of peace and fear. The humans carried on as usual, tending fires, sharing stories. But above them, the stars glittered like watchful eyes. The aliens gathered around the main fire, their blue and silver suits glowing faintly in the darkness. Zalara looked at each of her crew members, Roan, Mira, and Kalen, her loyal team who had followed her into danger and defied their own people. "They will be here soon," she said. "We have to decide and go with them or stay here. But if we stay, the council might attack this world." Roan frowned. "We can't let them harm these people. They don't deserve it." Kalen, the youngest, clenched his fists. "Maybe they should see what we've seen. Maybe if they witness humanity with their own eyes, they'll understand." Mira nodded slowly. "Or maybe they'll destroy what they don't understand. That's what fear does." Zalara looked into the fire, her reflection flickering in the flames. She felt torn between two worlds, and her home among the stars and this fragile planet full of life and pain. Finally, she said, "Then we make them see. If they come, we show them what Earth truly is, not a dead world, but a living miracle." The next morning, Elias gathered the people and told them everything. The villagers were frightened, but not surprised. They had faced worse: storms, hunger, war. An approaching alien ship was just another challenge in their endless list of trials. "We'll stand with you," Elias told Zalara. "If your people want to see what we are, we'll show them. Not with weapons, but with who we are." Zalara nodded, her heart warming at his courage. "You shouldn't have to fight for our mistakes," Elias smiled. "We've been fighting for our lives since the day we were born. This is nothing new." That night the skies lit up. A massive shadow appeared beyond the clouds. The council's retrieval ship. Its silver hull stretched across the heavens, glowing with cold light. The humans stared in awe and fear, their fires flickering in the alien reflection. A voice echoed from the ship, metallic and sharp. "Captain Zalara of the Vorthan Fleet, you have violated galactic protocol. Return immediately or face termination." Elias looked at her. "They sound friendly." Zalara didn't answer. She stepped forward, activating her communicator. "This is Captain Zalara. I refuse to comply. You will not harm this planet. There is intelligent, emotional life here, worthy of protection," the voice replied. "Emotions are not evidence. You endanger your crew and mission." Zalara lifted her chin. "Then come and see for yourself." The ship descended slowly, sending winds racing across the valley. Dust flew, trees bent, and the humans shielded their eyes. A bright platform extended from the ship, and 3 high-ranking council officers appeared, wrapped in silver armor that glowed like stars. They walked down, their steps silent and cold. The lead officer, tall and stern, faced Zalara. "Captain," he said, "you have disappointed the council. This world is chaotic. It does not deserve contact." Zalara stood her ground. "This world deserves everything. These humans are not perfect, but they endure what no other species could. You said no life could survive here, but they did, and not only that, they lived. The officer's eyes narrowed. Emotion clouds your logic. These creatures are primitive. At that moment, Elias stepped forward. He was covered in dust, his clothes torn, but his eyes were full of strength. Primitive? He said calmly. Maybe. But we learned to grow food from broken soil, to breathe air that tries to kill us, to rebuild when everything falls apart. What have you done lately? The officer's metallic face tilted slightly, studying him. You challenged the council? Elias smiled faintly. No, I'm just telling the truth. Then something unexpected happened. A small child, the same girl who had given Zalara bread, stepped out from the crowd and offered a single flower, a bright yellow bloom growing from cracked earth. She walked up to the alien officer and held it out with a shy smile. This is for you, she said softly. For a long moment, no one moved. The officer stared at the fragile flower, the symbol of life growing in a dying world. His armor's light reflected on its petals. Something in his expression changed. His eyes flickered with confusion, and something almost human. He turned to Zalara. They live in chaos, he said slowly, yet they find beauty. Zalara nodded. Yes, that's what makes them extraordinary. The silence that followed felt endless. The wind moved gently through the valley, carrying the sound of human voices, the laughter of children, the whisper of life itself. Finally, the officer spoke again. The council will not destroy this planet. You may remain until further notice. But remember, Captain, your loyalty will be questioned. Zalara bowed her head. Then let them question it. My loyalty belongs to life. The officer gave a slow nod, then turned away. Within minutes, the great ship lifted off again, vanishing into the clouds. The roar faded, leaving only the calm of the valley. When the sky was clear again, the humans cheered. Children danced and the adults clapped and hugged each other. Elias laughed for the first time in days, looking at Zalara. You did it, he said. You made them see, Zalara smiled softly. We did it. You showed them what survival means. Elias looked up at the stars. Think they'll come back? Maybe, she said. But next time they'll come to learn, not to judge. That night, as the fires burned bright and music echoed through the valley, Zalara walked alone for a moment to the edge of the mountain. The stars above seemed closer now, warmer somehow. Ron approached her quietly. Captain, he said, do you ever wish you had never come here? She smiled faintly. If I hadn't, I would still believe survival needs perfection. But now, I know the truth. What truth? That even a broken world can give birth to miracles. She looked back at the valley, at humans rebuilding homes, laughing, singing, living. They are the universe's heartbeat, she whispered, and I will protect it. Years later, the story of that day would spread through the stars, the story of a dying planet that refused to die, of humans who defied nature itself, and of aliens who finally understood the meaning of endurance. In every corner of the galaxy, whenever someone faced hardship, they would remember Earth, the impossible planet that kept breathing, and the fragile species that turned pain into power. And above them all, somewhere beyond the stars, Captain Zalara's words would echo forever. Hope is not born from comfort. It is born from struggle. And that is why humans survive.